Hey Puppy Trades! I wanted to do a video analysis update, a quick one on a unique sector. Now, looking at this ETF unusual options volume screen, it is very apparent what sector I should be talking about. I should be talking about the oil and gas sector, the energy sector, another energy sector, and the copper sector, another copper ETF, another oil ETF, institutions, and surprise, surprise, biotech institutions are in the mining sector, XME, and the dividends is, I can't even go on. These are value ETFs. Almost every single one of these ETFs is just so hard to do. I can't even honestly do the original video. Every single one of these ETFs is something getting dramatically more expensive. This is insane. This is who knows what's coming. It's really hard. I was gonna do a funny video, and I still am gonna do a video, but this is just hard to fathom right now. Let's just go through these one more time. XES, oil and gas, energy, bear. Which one's this? North American. I was hoping it was software. I don't think that's IGV. North American Tech iShares. Okay, so that one ETF is a tech ETF. This is an energy ETF. This is an NVIDIA individual ETF. Chinese internet, and then psychedelics I was going to do. But look at all of these. The copper mining ETF, this is the total market. So that's the whole international market. Usually international stocks, emerging markets, those tend to have a lot of natural resources and commodities driven markets. So that's also an inflation play. India bull, that can be tech and a pretty big inflation play. Copper, big inflation play. India small caps, that's probably going to be lots of commodities and some tech in there. But wow, these are all, look at these way up here. It's all about the volume. The big ones up here are clearly, and this is a theme that's seen every day for a long time, and we can probably even see right now when they're expecting this oil thing to happen. I'm discovering new oil stocks every day just by looking at these screens, and I'll get into the original video, but this is something that is much bigger than all that, because the original video was going to be about that fun psychedelic ETF. And the real purpose of me posting that was to talk about just the predictive power of being involved in behavioral finance and speculative finance, which is what I do. And there's a more quantitative side, the insurance side, the debt side, and to some, the credit side, that is much more quantitative. It's not speculative. It's a much more statistically based. But then there's another side where it does get more speculative, and statistics do get involved, and they are predictive statistics. And it's not a foreign concept. This is 100.81. It's not just finance. A lot of people in business these days, they get hired for purchasing, procurement, manufacturing, analyzing those numbers with Excel spreadsheets, and especially for purchasing raw materials. These exact same, they're probably not doing technical analysis in Elliott Wave. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the institutions are, certainly, but at regular companies, they're going to be predicting price movements and commodities and things like that. And usually keeping track of just things like OPEC and the politics of the day, that usually doesn't work. Although the Elliott Wave would say that it will work for these people in this situation, people betting that maybe because OPEC is cutting production. I think that was a headline. Don't quote me on that. Or just the war in the Middle East looking like it's going to keep escalating. Netanyahu said he was going to cross the Rafah line that Biden had said. But this is, regardless of what the explanation is, even if it's just one of these banks goes down because the Fed emergency lending program ends, and that's going to cause one bank to go down. So then there's going to be a liquidity injection, even though it seems like rates have been paused. Anyway, there's a variety of things that can go into causing this. But the price prediction for me that I'm making and preparing for is very clear. And I've invested money in this through closed-end funds. I've invested a good amount through options, to be honest, on these small cap energy names. But yeah, I'm gonna have this chart be red because this is red alert for oil. I mean, if oil and gold even, it's getting scary. The gold mining, I have a leap on New Gold Corp. I need to add to that leap position. It's starting to get in the money. But yeah, commodities and oil going up. This is the big one. And I don't know what the exact explanation is going to be. I do think it's going to be war driven. I don't think they're going to blame it on Powell and the Fed funding rate. Looking at the charts of Raytheon and Boeing and even Go. I know the stuff's going wrong with the airlines, but anyway, that's kind of beyond this. It looks to me it's clear. The biggest prediction the MMs are making every day, and it's new ETFs. Sometimes it's the same ETFs. Oil is going to get ready to go. Maybe they're going to lose a lot of money, and I'm wrong about this. The invalidation is 76.08. That's the wide invalidation. 76.08, 76.65. Honestly, this isn't really the best view of oil, but it's a big ETF. I bought leaps on REI recently. I posted about so many oil stocks, and so that's why I didn't even, because I've made it so clear, but it's just another day where they get ready for, and what happens realistically, what happens in another front month, right? So they're just getting ready to exercise these at 3:15. They're going to exercise all those options at 3:15, and then that's probably what all these are. We can check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Length of wave 1, place of the wave too low. To me, it's more about upside risk. I don't care if I'm wrong. 109. Because if I'm wrong about these and things get more expensive, my dividends are huge. That cash buying power is going to get substantial. So really, it's more about not necessarily just knowing that oil and gold, or really strongly thinking that oil and gold are going to go up, but just trying to outperform it. And real estate too. But they're betting a lot of money on these oil ETFs, XES. Let's see what some of these other ones were. They shorted the bear ETF. That's interesting. The leverage bear ETF. So that gets them, they can take advantage of decay. This is an interesting way to take advantage of leverage ETF decay because they're clearly bullish. It looks like that was a front month short. So it looks like they're bullish oil and they can take advantage of this leverage decay. Sometimes they'll give you the end expiration. Man, what in the world? Oh, look at that. I mean, look, maybe this MM's right. This leverage ETF is going to go from 24.28 to 15 by October. I believe it. Watch that. Let's see what happens to that. Leap put. That's a real far out of the money leap put they filled. Wow. I believe it. I definitely believe this ETF could lose 50% of its value by October. I think that MM knows something, so he wants to exercise these front months puts. Oh, wow. I don't ever exercise puts, ever. I don't short directly, but I do use put options to short things, and sometimes I short inverse ETFs to take advantage of that leverage decay, and obviously the leverage exposure. It's quite the driver's seat to be in. Yeah, I think that MM's going to be right. But anyway, what I was going to do the video on, that's one prediction. I thought this other one was interesting. Some people talk about the Great Awakening. I've always thought it's interesting, and you could ask what group thinks this is going to happen. Even just the idea that like people are waking up, with stuff that happened with whatever in the past 2 or 3 years, anything. People are waking up to stuff. The Great Awakening. I've always thought it was interesting from a stock market speculative perspective, looking at these Elliott wave counts, PSIL 325% unusual options volume. I thought this was kind of funny. 325% unusual options volume. This is a psychedelic ETF. The Advisor Shares Psychedelic ETF seeks long-term capital appreciation, Compass Pathways, Mind Medicine, Cybin, NRX. I've already done a wave count of this 9% holding right here, and I think the wave count's really clean. So I'm going to go through one example of this. I think that this is just kind of fun, but this is just one example of predictive power in the stock market. And so what would, the most likely explanation be? They bought theirs for April. This is not a ton of money, but it is an unusual amount, and it's an interesting choice what these ETFs are. Even when the ETFs, since they're less liquid, they're gonna have sometimes. But I like looking at the less liquid ETFs and seeing the unusual options volume, and it tends obviously the most liquid ETFs like the oil ETFs. Those are gonna be tons and tons of money that's being spent, and the much more liquid ETFs than that. This isn't tons of money. I do think this is interesting. 419. They bet pretty far out of the money. 25. Is that 20? Yeah, it's about 25-ish, 20% out of the money. The Delta says there's a 62% chance these expire worthless, and they say there's there's a 62% chance that these two strikes expire worthless. And it looks like there is a 77% chance these expire worthless. So these options up here, these three strikes for April, 77% chance they expire worthless. These two strikes, about a 62% chance they expire worthless. This MM thinks he knows something. It wasn't a ton of money bet. But I do think it's interesting. I think the Elliott wave is pretty clean for Cybin, at least. We can look at this fund. This is an ETF full of them. And so what would the logical fundamental reasoning be? It's most likely that there's going to be psychedelic legalization. And this is pretty serious psychedelic legalization. So just the length of wave A, places the wave B high, is where a long-term ABC correction may have ended for this ETF. Very risky, but what's the kind of interesting growth from a sector that's a little surprising. I wouldn't really think that this is kind of hardcore psychedelic legalization. It looks like, psychs, that's kind of, I don't know, Scoobs, that's pretty hard. We'll see. And now I think Oregon and in some of these states that were legalizing this stuff, they legalized lots of drugs, and now they really regret it. But it looks like at the same time, a state like Oregon is really regretting it. Some big provinces, I think, in America, not provinces in America, we're probably gonna have districts too soon anyway. But some provinces in Canada have legalized pretty liberal use of drugs in their provinces, and those places also allow you to have self-assisted something bad. So that's very an interesting combination. But yeah, it looks like they're about to legalize gambling. It looks like they're about to legalize, at least medicinally, hardcore psychedelics. So I think that there's a more clean wave count on this. The long-term invalidation would be that a nest is forming from this low on a daily time frame. That invalidation for this wave 2 is going to be 1.32, but potentially, especially if another high is made in price and on the relative strength index, we'll do the daily count, 68.60, 68.48, so above 68.60 on the daily RSI. That's going to be nice Elliott wave confirmation that a nest is forming a 5 waves impulse from this low, and that could suggest that this whole kind of sector might be at a cyclical bottom. So that is PSIL. The stock that I think has a pretty clean wave count is Cybin. So legalization coming around for the sector. I think for certain groups of people in our society, veterans would be a good example. Patients of very serious diseases. That's a great thing. They should certainly have the option to it if their doctor thinks that's the best idea. And there are lots of really bad side effects of other drugs. I completely understand that. I wonder what this would look like recreationally, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe people should be able to choose to do stuff like this. Cybin is a biotechnology company. It is focused on progressing psychedelic therapeutics by utilizing proprietary drug discovery platforms, drug delivery systems, novel formulation approaches, and treatment regimens for psychiatric disorders. So they're giving treatments for psychiatric disorders, and so probably better than a lot of the psychiatric meds. I think that a lot of the psychiatric meds that they give to people in mental hospitals, or even just the therapists would prescribe to people, aren't the best. So very controlled doses of psilocybin, maybe that's the better solution. I'll talk about the pot sector too. I guess there's a little bit of a connection, or a stock market connection between these. Sometimes the stock market can choose to have connections that don't really make sense. I think they just kind of maybe they make sense, but they just come out of nowhere. Like, for example, in the long term, maybe psychedelic legalization and cannabis legalization won't be correlated, but just for this brief period of time, they are. Or just the markets themselves won't be correlated. Maybe they'll just always move together as pharmaceuticals, but I think that cannabis is more likely, that sector is more likely to have a relationship with the commodities at some point. Anyway, looking at Cybin in the long-term picture, I think that this is an ABC correction, and this is a wave 1 and a wave 2. This is another wave 1 and another wave 2. I'm going to zoom into the weekly. I think that the subdivision is actually pretty, so it's a nice example of some Elliott wave principles. So, yeah, Elliott wave theorists, we think we can predict the future. That's what we're accused of. I'll do one. I think that, these types of psilocybin, psychedelics, things like that, I think large institutions know they're about to be made legal. And so with the cannabis stocks too. So that's my prediction. I'm Nostradamus. I think I can predict the future. How do I know that? Well, I think they know that. Who's they? I don't know. The MMs. Y'all are the one who calls them the MMs. I call them the MMs too. Hey. Yeah, that wasn't the most important ABC correction to label. Anyhow, yeah, I think the MMs know. And I think a lot of people expected that pot legalization was going to be around the corner. I don't know if a lot of people expected that psychedelic legalization would be around the corner, but maybe they did. And I think that both of these things, for veterans with PTSD and people with very serious illnesses like cancers and stuff like that, could be very useful. I also think it's unfortunate. I think there was a new study recently. A lot of these companies, man, now this is just the fact. You guys can look into it. A lot of these companies are investing big time in cancer treatment. So I don't think these psilocybin companies are part of some plot or anything like that. But a lot of those healthcare companies, you know which ones I'm talking about. J&J. I posted about J&J. Why J&J go up? They're investing big in cancer. Wow. Pfizer getting a little bit of a bid recently. Why? Oh, cancer. Investing in cancer companies. So these might be if there's any very great thing about these becoming options to people with serious diseases, in PTSD, which I think is going to happen. I think the charts and the MMs know this is going to happen. I think it's good for them to have that option, better than what Pfizer and Johnson and all those other. There's a lot of them. I'll get the source. We'll talk about it in other videos, but you guys can look it up. A lot of these healthcare companies, J&J recently, all these XLV stocks that are green, just look at how many of them we find out they're green because they're investing in cancer treatments. And I think there was a big study, I think it was from the CDC. I don't want to get in trouble for not perfectly quoting something, but 2021 and 2022, wow, huge spikes in cancer from people ages 18 to 39. Another one. Anyway, psilocybin, hopefully doesn't have anything to do with that except for giving another great option to people with serious diseases besides what Pfizer and Johnson give the people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves up, wave 1, and ABC correction, wave 2, wave 3 for Tilray. I bought the 2-strike 117.25 2-strike leap for $56 on Tilray. I'm going to hold it. I'm not going to sell it even if Tilray goes below 1.50, but I have seen the MMs take some interest in other names in the pot sector. I can't believe bar chart's not going to show me pot X. You introduced me to pot X ETF bar chart. Now you're saying it doesn't exist. Anyway, that's Tilray. I noticed Sundial had 0% implied volatility rank, but I think the cleaner one that I've seen the MMs take some positions on, Organigram, OGI, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves up, wave 1, wave A, B, C correction from that high. So I think this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, large wave 1 or wave A. In the big degree, this subdivided is an A, B, C correction that ends a large wave 2 or wave B, also on the big degree. So I'm looking for a wave 3, wave C to develop. From this low, it looks like it's 0.97. That's too wide. I think the MMs are in the money on their leap position, or they're making a little money. We'll see how they do. But I think they know, and I think a lot of people knew that legalization of pot was around the corner. The Puppy Trades viewers, as always, learn the big news first, and I think that's that CYBN is going to hold above 0.3081, and we're going to see psilocybin and hardcore psychedelics be legalized too, and the pups know that first. So do with that information what you will.